All right. So what you're seeing now is the culmination of everything I've learned on how to become wealthy, both internally and externally. And so, first off, we have to understand what is wealth, right? There's so many people talking about rich and wealth out there, and everything you see on this screen right now is intentional. The only thing that isn't intentional is when I call myself Indiana Ullman. I mean, well, that is intentional too. And the reason I call myself that is because Indiana Jones is, he's one of my heroes. I grew up. I wanted to have adventures, travel the world. I now travel the world. Been living on the road for 3.5 years. We have epic adventures on motorcycles, and I stay in jungles. We're getting ready to do a 15-day hike across the Sahara with only a camel. And I take these lessons I learn out there and I apply them to the business world because people can relate to that, right? When I start talking balance sheet, cash flow, and income statement, it's like glazes people over. When I start talking about business strategy and M&As and all of that, people's eyes glaze over. And so what I do is I use these adventures and to relate the practical skills of business and development and just growing as a human. And so, first off, we have to understand what am I talking about when I say the wealth cycle. And I want to share my story. I grew up in a small town in Northwest Indiana, and there's defining moments in all of our lives. And one of many was when my dad died when I was 12. I was, I took over the family farm. We were a strawberry farmer, and we did a lot of different things when I was 12 years old. And so I would wake up before school. Work after school. I'd wake up before school and work. And, I sort of became the man of the household at the age of 12. And I had zero value for education. I just wanted to work because in the society ecosystem that I grew up, the harder you worked, the more valuable you were. And so I actually prided myself on how hard I worked, and I valued I hated school, absolutely hated it. And so I really didn't put any work into school, and I was only focused on making money. And so when I graduated high school, it became a pivotal point in my life. I said, what is next? I want to, three things. This was three things. I want to, one, travel the world. I wanted to two, help people. And I wanted to three, make money. And so as a farmer, you can imagine I wasn't really able to fill any of those. And so I started looking around. I said, okay, what can I do? Like, what can I do to do those? And it all came down to two things: finance and business. So I became very focused on finance business, went to Indiana University, graduated top of my class from business and finance. And then in 2008, I went into the world, the real world, right? If you remember that, oh my gosh, it sucked for everybody. It's sort of similar to the economic times we're now. And I spent 2.5 years sending out 3,500 resumes, right? And so we call it the experience paradox. And this isn't my idea. This is just the idea that when you're going out there to get a job and you have no experience, the people say, well, I'll give you a job if you have experience, but no one will give you the first experience, that first job to get that experience. And so I spent, right, 2 years, almost 2.5 years working for free. The first year I would drive 200 miles round trip to Chicago every day, 5 days a week. 200 miles. I want you guys to understand, round trip, 5 days a week for a year for free, just so I could get experience. And then what I did, I found a place for that somebody would let me stay in Chicago, and I started working at the Chicago Board of Trade for free, right? Because it was a commission only job. And what I learned in that job was a lot, but I didn't make any money for like 2 years. I was borrowing money from my mom, and my friends were paying for all my living expenses when we'd go out on the weekend. And so over the years, I was focusing on one thing. I was focusing on balance sheet wealth, right? And this is the actual money of it, right? The actual money of it. And then I started focusing on the education, right? And I'm fast forwarding over 2 decades. And then today, this is what I focus on. I focus on all of this, but I'm more on, internal, right? Internal wealth. And what I mean by that is, man, I have literally been through the ringer. I have had panic attacks. I've fallen over out of my desk because I was working 7 days a week, 16-hour days, stressed to the moon. I had plenty of balance sheet wealth, but my internal wealth, my personal wealth, my lifestyle, my wife, I neglected my wife, I neglected my friends, I neglected my health. Oh my gosh. And so today I focus on all of this and I focus on living a balanced life. I focus on my businesses, I focus on my education, I focus on my meditation. If you guys read, oh my gosh, I read so much. The Miracle Morning, right? The Miracle Morning is something that will change your life. It's changed my life. And so go read this book. It's beautiful. Miracle Morning by Hal Enrod. Oop, Hal Enrod. Create your miracle morning. Today, my miracle morning probably takes 3 to 5 hours. And because I have that, I've created that lifestyle. I'm actually recording this live from Bali, Indonesia, and I've spent the last 3.5 years traveling. I've worked my way out of a job, out of a business, into a life that I get to focus on the things that are passionate to me. But it doesn't, like, you just don't end up here, right? I've spent 2 decades getting here, and I want to share this wisdom with you, right? And it all really is right here. And so not only do I want you to focus on the balance sheet wealth, right? Because you need the balance sheet wealth to pay for the coaches, to pay for the assets, to work your way out of whatever it is that you're focused on. And so when you know from the start of the top here, learn and grow. Like, that is intentional. So I thought I could just become rich. Here's the thing, this is a process. I have so many mentors, I have so many people I surround myself. There's not one thing that you don't have to learn. And that is absolutely critical. You have to learn how to learn. I actually took a class, learn how to learn, right? Learn how to memorize stuff, learn how to take notes, learn how to be, my brain is like that movie Limitless now because I learned how to use it. It always wasn't like this. I used to have to like forge my way through stuff. And so I had to learn how to learn, right? And then I had to learn how to grow rich. And the word together is very intentional. I read this beautiful book. It's called what was it called? Thou Shalt Prosper. And it gave this beautiful analogy about if you were the last person on earth, you would technically be the richest person in the world. You would have everything to yourself. And eventually you would be headed to the culmination of where everyone started, a farmer. Right? Because eventually you would eat all the food because it would spoil, right? Eventually you would use up all the gas or it would go bad. And eventually, like, you would have to travel on a horse and farm your own food eventually, right? Because we need each other. And if you think you don't, you're lying to yourself. I used to think I didn't need other people. I was super socially awkward. I was a financial analyst, consultant, professional for a reason. And that's because I didn't want to deal with people. I was afraid of other people. I've had to go through so much personal development. Again, another key component of this. And so I want you guys to understand what it takes to achieve your dreams, what it takes to achieve your goals. And it is a process and it is a commitment. And there's nothing that you're going to get rich overnight. And it's all a framework that you start with. And so you need other people. And I'm telling you, I'm going to give you references to books. Thou Shalt Prosper. It's by a Jewish rabbi. It's a beautiful book on how community. You need community. You need people to do things for you so that you can become an expert at one thing. And the more you can become an expert at something, be it real estate or business development or marketing or any of that, the the more money you can make. Okay. And so community, right? So the word community is very intentional. And so the community that you surround yourself with is the people you're going to learn and grow rich together, or not. And what I mean by that is, if you're not hanging around the right community, you're not going to grow rich with them because they're not right? It's not the right environment. And so you want to make sure that the community you're in is people, is full of people that embody these principles of success, embodies these principles of wealth, embodies these principles that business is good. Businesses change the world. Are there bad people in business? Yes. Is business bad? Absolutely not. And there's this thought out there that business is bad and demonized. I'm telling you, you're in business, whether you know it or not. You're an employee of somebody's business. Guess what? You're in business. You have an income statement, a balance sheet, and a cash flow, right? You're an asset to somebody. They can fire you. You can choose not to go to work. There is nothing, and I'm going to prove that to you over this series. And so keep listening. I'm going to challenge some of your beliefs because my beliefs, oh my gosh, when I started this journey 20 years ago, I had a very finite way of thinking. I thought I knew, knew everything. And today I am so hungry to learn. And so inside of this aspect called right? So we're going to start on the outside of this. We start with community. You need a community. You have to surround yourself with people that are of similar mindset of you. And so if you want to become a real estate investor, if you want to become successful in business, you need to start hanging around those people. To take it to another end, if you want to become a farmer, or if you want to become a DJ, or you want to become a famous singer, guess who you should be hanging around? Those type of people. And so you can take this framework that I'm training on and you can apply it to anything. If you want to become a world renowned wine sommelier, guess who you should be hanging around? Other people that are doing that. If you want to become a professional athlete, an Olympic athlete, guess who you should be hanging around? Your community is going to define you, whether you like it or not. Okay. And so you got to make sure you're in a community of people that embody the skill sets you want to develop yourself in. So we're going to talk business development. We're going to talk real estate inside of this. Okay. And so then we have personal development. That's the next stage right here. Personal development, how I define it is in your, I have many different programs I've taken over years. I'm going to say Tony Robbins, right? Tony Robbins is a great example. Oh my gosh, I could just go. I remember when I used to sit at work, I would listen to these oh my gosh, I can't think of it right now. Earl Nightingale. If you guys know who Earl Nightingale is, he has this old raspy voice, and I would just listen to him over and over. Jim Rohn. These are legends. There's so many of these people, right? And then you could, yoga is a personal development. Mindfulness is a personal development. Reading is a personal development. Learning how to learn is personal development. Speed reading is a personal development. Spirituality is a personal development. Marriage counseling is a personal development. Therapy is a personal development. Something that takes you and makes you better, increases your learning capacity in the world so that you can go out there and do something bigger, better than you did before you had that. Goal setting would be a great personal development class to take. Vision setting would be a great personal development. I'm just naming stuff and learning how to communicate. I've taken classes, personal development classes on learning how to listen. I've taken personal development on learning how to communicate. I've taken personal development on learning how to present. I've taken personal development classes on I've taken classes on how to be a better husband. I've taken classes on how to have fun because if you're a high performer, which if you're listening to this, you probably are, you tend to work too much. And that actually diminishes your return in the world. And so I had to learn how to have fun. I had to learn how to have courage. I had to learn how to talk to people because I was socially awkward. And so when I say personal development, I'm talking about all of that. Okay. And so when that is right. So now we're gonna zoom in here a little, and so now we're gonna talk about learning. Okay, and so in my opinion, that would be first, right? Because that you have to learn how to tie your shoes. You have to learn how to eat. You have to learn. I'm gonna say everything in this world is learned. Everything. You have to learn how to talk, you have to learn how to communicate, you have to learn how to be nice, you have to learn if you're a jerk, you learn that from somebody. You observe that from someone. And so this is where it all starts. And that's why it's at the top here. And so the idea is you have to learn how to make money. For me, my first paid job was on my family farm. I learned how to pick weeds. I learned how to run a rototiller. I learned how to drive a tractor, and then I made money. And then I would buy something. What I chose to buy was I got taken to, True Value, and I would get an Erdl tractor. That was my, now I didn't invest it in an asset. I didn't invest in myself because no one ever taught me this. I bought the little tractors, right? And I set up my big farm in the kitchen, right? And then I went this way. I would go make more money or go make more money. I spent very little learning when I was, before I had this change of mindset because no one ever taught me this. And so I never really invested in myself. I never really invested in assets. And so I was stuck between these two. Go make money, right? And really I didn't even go learn. So I was just in this world of making money. And then I started working for my neighbor. So this is my first outside job of my family farm. Guess what I did? I sorted pickles. I sorted pickles and I hated it. And then I learned how to drive bigger tractors. So I guess, but it wasn't like I was intentionally doing it. So I got a bigger tractor and then I learned how to become a janitor. And I worked at a motorcycle shop and, very unintentional learning, very slow pace. And then I said, you know what? This isn't cutting the mustard. I need to go to college. I need to go to college to speed up this learning curve. Then I spent 5 years at college. I drove, about 70 miles round trip, 5 days a week, because I went to Indiana University Satellite Campus up in Northwest Indiana for 5 years. I spent so much time driving, right? And I was learning, and right, I graduated, and then I went into the workforce. I eventually made money. Now we're going to speed this up, and we're going to get to where I am, really started using this model. So I learned, I make money. I was making six figures a year. It was like probably with all my stuff, probably about 150K. Had every bell and whistle you could think of. I finally landed a job in the profession, financial consulting, very high end theoretical finance, where I would value anything that can create a cash flow. And that is where I learned a lot of the foundation for this stuff because I wanted to be in private equity, I wanted to be in hedge funds, I wanted to buy, sell businesses. And so I was in that world and I offered to work for free and guess how much I started off with? $35,000 a year. I used to sleep on the floor. I used to work 60 to 100 hours a week. I made this my life because I wanted to learn. All I did was learn. Once I got that first job, I said, "What books do I need to learn?" And they just kept giving me books and books. I would spend every second learning and reading, and I became one of the best people at my firm. And then I got a job working for one of the best firms in my industry. That is where I got the big, 27 years old, making 150 plus $1,000 with all my compensation, salaries, 2 weeks, 2 weeks, plus vacation, all of this stuff. And I hated it. About 6 months in, I hated it because I was like, this is it. This is the rest of my life. But here's the thing, it was a stepping stone. Jobs are not bad. I want you guys to understand they're a stepping stone because I'm going to explain this later. Um, so I made some money, and then here's where it took off. I started investing in myself. I bought my first coaching program. I bought my first education program to learn how to invest in real estate. And that's when everything took off. And that's when this machine, the cycle really started taking place. And so I would learn, right? I bought a real estate investing program. I learned how to make money, right? I took that and I bought more courses. And I bought my first home. Bought my first home. Now the machine is running. Guess what I did? I learned more. I watched those classes. I started hanging around, right? I embodied this whole framework from the community to the personal development. I lived and breathed this framework. And check it out. Once I started taking this framework in 8 months, right? 8 months, I quit my job, right? 8 months. I had, no, sorry, I quit my job in 6 months because I had 8 rentals. Now I really embrace this though. Now before that, I was working up. I wasn't fully embracing it. I would dabble here, dabble there. But when I started, really, it was the personal development was my last piece. That piece of overcoming the human the fear of other humans, the fear of talking to people. I was great with numbers, I was great with business. I was scared to death to talk to other people. Guess what? I took a personal development class that really helped me do that. And so once I embodied this whole model, it took me 6 months to get 8 rental properties. Then I quit that and I bought my first business, moved to Arizona, bought my first business. And ever since then, this has been my life. I am always in a program. I'm learning to make more money. I take some of that, I buy an asset, either a business or real estate. I take some of it, I buy a new class or a new program or a new book or something. I learn some more, and then I go make some more money. I go and buy more assets. I go and buy another program. I learn in that, and I just keep repeating this over and over and over again. And today, right, I just keep elevating. I'm in coaching programs. I pay for my own team to have coaching programs. And this is the framework, right? And so you have to understand there is no shortcut. You can speed it up, and I'm going to show you ways to speed it up. And it has to do with creating plans, getting intentional, hanging around the right people, knowing where you're at, where you want to go, all of that. But if you think you're going to shortcut this, right? One of my mentors says the fastest way to go broke is to try to get rich quick. I'm going to say that again. The fastest way to go broke is try to get rich quick. And so really become a lover of learning, become a lover of investing in yourself and learn how to invest this, because the stuff you're going to learn in this training, I promise you, it is going to shortcut your way. This is, let me rephrase that. It's not going to shortcut. It's going to speed up the learning process, because there's so many programs out there telling you this is the way, that's the way. They might be, I don't know, but unless you have a framework to put those in, you won't know when you need them. Because typically what happens is you're in too advanced of a program for your capacity. And what I mean by that is, you buy a 6 month, 12-month program that costs you 10, 15, $30,000, and you're not ready for it yet. And so by the time that program's done, it was so advanced for you, you didn't learn the language, you didn't learn the terminology, you didn't understand the principles of it, and you shouldn't have been in it. But then there's others of you that are ready for that. And so we have a whole framework we're going to take you through so that you can learn what's best for you. So keep watching. And if you have any questions on this, post them. We're going to get your questions answered. But this is the framework of everything. Now, the last thing I'm going to say here is the learn, understand, practice. All right, so you can learn, but I need you to really start questioning yourself. I need you to do those critical thinking. I need you to learn to understand, because if you don't understand, you're just going to be repeating stuff. And the people that understand are the people that get paid. Well, how do you understand? Well, you got to go put it into practice, right? And so go start hanging around with people that are doing this. Go start testing stuff for yourself. One of my other mentors says it says, I have so many mentors. It says, it takes 20 hours to become proficient at something, but it takes a lifetime to to start that first. It takes 20 years to start that first 20 hours, because we procrastinate. Do not procrastinate. Go out there, start learning something, start putting it into practice. Watch the rest of this training to learn what those things are that you actually need to go out there and start learning. So keep watching. Excited for you to understand this in its totality. Have a beautiful day.